Hello and welcome back to Learn Law with Hannah. So we are now on week 5. This is the summary of the Lucy Letby trial, the nurse who has been charged with murder and attempted murder of babies in a neonatal unit where she was working. On Monday, a neonatal assistant gave evidence in court. Now, this assistant had been working with Lucy Letby. There was an alarm at the cot where Lucy Letby was standing, where child D was in the cot, and child D's oxygen levels had fallen. So Letby started stimulation and then put on the oxygen mask. The neonatal assistant shouted for help, and Letby asked her why. When asked in court about the tone in which Letby said this, the neonatal assistant said, quote, "It was quite firmly said." Now, the Crown are alleging that Letby injected air into child D, whereas with the other children, they are saying it's via a nasogastric tube. A doctor also gave some evidence and said it was a dramatic deterioration that they witnessed in child D, and they'd never seen that before. On Tuesday, we had more medical evidence. Another doctor said that child D looked dusky and was put on an incubator and got pinker, but they needed to treat the jaundice. Child D was okay with an okay pulse and had shallow breaths. The doctor also said, well, there was likely sepsis and they were not stable enough to have a lumbar puncture to see if the sepsis had spread. But overall, the doctor said that they were happy. The defence KC put to the doctor that this was not a good clinical picture. And the doctor agreed to this and said that child D was not a healthy baby at this point in time. The other thing that was spoken about in court was that child D had not been given antibiotics. There was a 4-hour delay, and the doctor agreed that this falls below standard. A nurse who was working at the time also gave some evidence, and they said that the chart with the dose levels to give the drugs to child D went missing. So the nurse gave resuscitation drugs using child D's weight and her experience. So the nurse did not look at the chart because the chart had gone missing. They later found the chart. Another doctor saw child D and saw the rash. Notice this rash, this unusual rash. Letby had called for help and was very upset and said to the doctor, "My second baby this has happened to." So this is the second time this has happened. On Wednesday, senior nurse gave evidence and again spoke about the rash on baby D's torso, but then said the rash settled. The nurse returned some time later because the heart rate had dropped and they were assisted by somebody, but they can't clearly remember who, and possibly it could have been Letby. The consultant was surprised when child D deteriorated. The consultant was surprised to be called back so urgently. Now, on Thursday, the case was adjourned because one of the jurors was ill. So you have to have all 10 jurors present in court. You can't skip a day or anything like that. But on Friday, the juror was well and the case went ahead. And they spoke to a professor of radiology from Great Ormond Street Hospital. And this professor had reviewed child D's x-rays. Now, there was gas in child D's body that you could see on their x-rays. And the professor said, well, this is consistent with sepsis, severe trauma, or direct administration of air into the body. And they said the only plausible conclusion was the last one, that there was external intravenous air administration. Under cross-examination, though, this professor said that they could see there was an infection in one of the lungs. The other bit of evidence that I think is quite important is the mother waited, or had to wait, over 50 hours for treatment when her waters broke and it was clear that there was a problem because she was also bleeding. Pathologist report for child D said the cause of death was pneumonia, but another doctor said, well, the sudden collapse is not an infection. So I guess what they're saying is if you have an infection, you have warning signs if a child is getting more unwell. And they said that it was likely to be air either through the catheter line or through a cannula. So lots of evidence for week 5. Tune in to see what I thought of week 5.